Here's a word: Quangos, quasi-non-governmental organisations, otherwise known as those deep state, unelected, unaccountable bodies operating quietly in the background, which are costing you billions of pounds every year. These organisations, Quangos, sound harmless enough, but in reality, they are arms of government power handed to bureaucrats who have no democratic mandate from you, the British people. There are now over 300 of these things across the UK, and they are draining some £350 billion from taxpayers without a shred of public oversight. Sir Keir Starmer promised a bonfire of the Quangos, just like governments before him. But what has he done since taking office? Well, he's set up more than 20 new ones. The Taxpayers Alliance has had enough, an important campaign group here in Westminster. They've launched a new campaign, Britain's Campaigns Uncovered, on X today. Watch this.
The body is spending taxpayers' money and shaping national policy. The public deserves to know who they are, what they're doing, how they got there, and whether they deserve a penny of their money. So let's pull back the curtain, expose Britain's Quangos, and put decision-making back where it belongs.
Well, with me now is the man in that video, William Yarwood, Media Campaign Manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Now, William, I would not only like to know who does your social media, but more importantly, what do people out there need to know about the quangocracy that is emerging around us?
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, I actually did that video all by myself, would you believe it? Which is quite fun. And I've really enjoyed the response from it because this is such an important issue. What people don't need to know is that, as you said earlier, we at the TPA have had enough of the guff and the lies and the nonsense coming from the politicians about who governs Britain, basically. Because the real answer about who governs Britain is it's not the politicians currently sitting in the House of Commons. It's people in backroom offices, in Quangos, like you said, which are making the real decisions which British people care about. And just recently, we've released our first report in our first campaign, Britain's Quangos Uncovered, called Members of the Board, which highlights just how many quangocrats there are in this country. So I'll just rattle some stats off for you. There are 285 quangocrats who sit on more than one quango body, and overall there are 4,605 quangocrats who sit on not over 300, but almost 400 quango boards. And the issue is, we don't know what they do. We don't really know how much they cost us. We don't know what their sort of function in society is. And the TPA is here to basically pull back the veil and tell us, you know, how much are these guys costing? What do they do? And do they really need to exist in Britain today? Because the answer, I think, clearly for a lot of them is obviously no.
I remember about 20 years ago reading quite an influential book called Post-Democracy. And the thesis in it was basically that power, accountability, influence is being taken away from the people and being moved to these unelected, unaccountable bodies. And listening to you, it sort of strikes me that that's basically gone mainstream. That yes, we might have left the European Union, we might have reclaimed our national democracy to some extent, but in some sense, power is still being hoarded by these entities that are not accountable to the people.
Yes, absolutely. So the Cabinet Office supposedly has oversight over these groups. But the issue is the governance laws and the accountability laws that have been put in place are never, ever enforced, Matthew. Actually, there was a fantastic report by the Institute for Government recently, just a few years ago, which showed that actually the relationship between Quangos and the government is one of vagueness. One of complete vagueness. No one really knows who's on these boards. No one really knows what they're doing and the like. And they have no idea how it applies to the departments that those ministers are working in.
So what about Labour scrapping, for example, NHS England, the biggest Quango in the country? I mean, if Labour were here, they would say, hey, we are taking on the Quangos.
So why did they set up so many when they first came into power? That's my question, Matthew. I mean, I don't buy Labour's call of the Quangos at all. Not only have we heard it all before from the Tories. I mean, when the Tories were in power, they claimed to do a bonfire of Quangos, but actually 5 out of 6 quangocrats ended up keeping their jobs due to reshuffles and smaller Quangos being morphed into bigger ones. But the reason I don't buy Labour's quangocracy bonfire specifically is not just because they've set up loads of ones, so GB Energy, which is not going to raise any energy, the Office of Value for Money, which is not going to, save any money, and the National Wealth Fund, which is not going to, raise any wealth. The reason I don't really buy it is because it's part of Keir Starmer's governing philosophy. He thinks that actually expertise, bureaucrats, so on and so forth, they know what's best for Britain. not actually the British people themselves or the representatives they elect.
And this is what I'm quite interested in. There are two different conceptions of power in the country. There is a conception of elite power. I think Keir Starmer probably shares this, that basically it is the expert class who should be deciding where we go as a country. And then there is a more direct democratic conception of power, which is about power resting in the people. And they are two fundamentally different visions of democracy.
Absolutely, and the problem with a lot of this quangocracy is it's so far away from democratic oversight. I mentioned earlier about the Cabinet Office having some level of oversight over it, but when ministers are dealing with various policy issues, they're not able to understand or deal with the quangos that their department supposedly has coverage over. I mean, there's so many quangos in this country, like I said, there's over 400, and what the TPA's plan is basically, Matthew, is to reveal absolutely every single one, name the names and break down the budget, because we're frankly sick to death of actually this country not working, power not being where it should be, which is with the democratically elected politicians that our people elect, and actually understand where on earth the power lies and why it should be in the hands of the people we actually elect, because democratic accountability and transparency, you were saying earlier about migration statistics, such an important move for transparency, but this is the next step. We need transparency in our governance laws, because otherwise we're not going to know who governs Britain or why.
Well, thank you, William. I'm going to be watching that project very closely because I think quangocracy is a real problem.